Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Eferia, and today's guest is Annamarie Pluhar. In modern culture, we are often sold a specific version of success: total independence. The goal is to always get your own place, build a high wall, and not answer to anyone. But Annamarie argues that this obsession with self reliance is actually a trap. With 27% of US households now single occupancy, she sees an epidemic of loneliness and financial strain. Annamarie believes that the failure isn't having a housemate at age 60. The failure is suffering in isolation because you are too proud to share your space. She is the founder of Sharing Housing Inc. and the author of a guidebook on finding good housemates. She is here to talk about why humans suck at picking people to live with, incest taboo of shared living, and how to turn a lonely house into a thriving home. So, Annamarie, I am very excited to welcome you to FailCraft. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So, without further ado, let's dive in. You point out a startling statistic: 27% of households in the US are just one person living alone. Society often sells this as the ultimate success, total independence, but you view it as a systemic failure. So do you think this modern obsession with privacy actually just a recipe for isolation and poverty?
Absolutely. I think that it is amazing that we have gotten to ourselves into a place as a society where we don't question when somebody lives alone. We say, oh yeah, of course you live alone. You're not in a relationship. You're not with family. You don't have kids, whatever. Of course you live alone. And that is not the way we are wired. So we, as human beings, were lived in tribes for millennia. And it's only really very recently that we're living in nuclear families and all of that. And it turns out that we are literally wired, our brains are wired to have social connection. So when we are feeling lonely, we have the same part of the brain fires as when we're feeling hungry or when we're feeling thirsty. But we live in a society which makes it really hard, if you're feeling lonely, to go and get connected somehow. Where do you go? What do you do? And I think that's what's happened in our society is first people just turned on TV, but now they're turning to social media and they're turning to online stuff, and their time is occupied and they're engaged with stuff, but they don't have the human connection of being in real life with people and having that connection. And I think in some kind of future time, we're going to discover that there's actually something very, very important about being in person with other people.
All right, all right. So you say that most people fail at shared housing because they choose a housemate based on whether they like the person. So, why is liking someone a terrible metric for living with them, in your opinion?
My favorite example of that is that you might like somebody because they're frivolous and they're fun and they like to go out
Mhm.
and have expensive meals. You don't necessarily want that, but they may not be very good about paying their bills. So you want to find people who are going to be compatible enough in the way that they live at home, that with you, that everybody is going to be comfortable. So I have this idea, this word I'm trying to create. I'm trying to make make the country understand it, that people can have homemates. And a homemate is somebody who you like and respect, whose ways of living at home are compatible enough that everybody's comfortable. It's a mature housemate relationship, and no adult wants to have a roommate. So just get that out of your language. Roommates are for camp, for college, maybe conferences, but it sounds adolescent. And I am not suggesting people have roommates. I am suggesting that people have housemates, and that a housemate who is chosen well can grow to be this thing called homemate, which is a different relationship than any relationship you can have. It's not a lovership. It's not family. It's not friends. It's because you've agreed to share a house together and to live together. And so you get to know each other. That's true. But it's different, you know? So my housemate right now, he's off on a trip. He went away for a week and he left the other day, and I was sort of like, bye. You know, it's no different. I like it, actually, that he's gone for a while. And it's a change of pace, but it's not like a friend. You'd be like, well, where are you going? And what are you about? And so on and so forth. It's not that. He's just gone. He's my housemate. Is that helpful?
Yes, indeed it was. So, most people, if not everyone, has that roommate from hell story to tell. So is the fear of that one bad experience the biggest barrier stopping people from trying again?
That would be one of the many. So the fear of the bad housemate, no question, that's a big one. How do I get rid of a bad housemate? And the other fear is lack of privacy. So the thing about the bad housemate, my answer is don't let the bad housemate move in. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm offering online and through my book and classes and so on, I am trying to teach people how to select somebody, or more than one, who they are going to like and respect and whose ways of living at home are compatible enough. And if you follow the process that I put in my book, that I have an online class called Sharing Housing 101, people can learn it that way too. If you follow that process and pay attention to yourself and how you feel about this other person and whether you're seeing red flags, don't ignore the red flag. The red flag is a red flag. The way things start is the way they'll continue. Say no. But if you don't see any red flags, you've got green lights. And I will tell you that that's true about my housemate. When he interviewed, I was like, no red flag. No red flag. No red flag. No red flag. Okay. I guess I need a housemate. I want a housemate because I want the money and I wanted the company. And so he's been in the house for 8 months now, and so far so good. But yes, people are afraid of the bad housemate, and I tell people not to let the bad housemate move in, and that's a very important place. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that people who live in shared housing just do it. They don't talk about it. They don't think it's something special. They don't say, hey, I got a housemate. They just do it. And I've discovered this because I do interviews of people. I call it real people living in shared housing. And I put them on my website. And sometimes I say to people, oh, you're sharing housing. Can I interview you? And they're like, huh? Like it's nothing special. It's just the way I live. But we get the bad stories because there's a story there. There's no story when it's just working. There's just no story.
All right.
Good stories.
All right. So you list the 4 secrets to a comfortable home, and one of them is the incest taboo. That's quite a provocative phrase for a housing discussion. What does that mean in the context of roommates?
Very clear, and I actually owe it to this idea. I owe to somebody I interviewed to be a housemate when we were in our 30s. And at the end of the interview, he looked at me and said, "So we have an incest taboo, right?" And I was like, "I guess so." Huh, okay. And it turned out to be very useful because we became quite good friends. And it would have been confusing to me about what kind of relationship we had. And in fact, I said the same. So the idea here is that your housemate should not be a sexual partner. If you end up sleeping together, okay, so what happens next? Are you married? Are you now a couple? You're already living together. How do you say, "No, I don't want to do that anymore and I'm going to go date somebody else"? Somebody's going to get hurt and eventually the house will break up and it will hurt. It won't be fun for anybody. Now, I've had people say that that's not necessarily true for them, but I think it's a good place to start, is that when you live with people and they are housemates, they're not potential sexual partners. And so, in fact, I said it to my housemate when we were interviewing, and it was one of the first things. We had a telephone conversation before we met in person. And I said, "So you and I would have an incest taboo?" And he's like, "Huh?" A little bit provocative, right? And I said, "So you and me living together, we're like brother and sister?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah. Just like that. And it made me feel like we got this. This is comfortable. We can live. And I will honestly, there are times when it feels like a relationship. We hang out at night. We have dinner together. We know a lot about each other, but it's got boundaries on it. I'd like to talk a little bit about the other three pieces. So that's the most
Yeah.
provocative. But so I call them the 4 principles for living well with people. And the first one is the golden rule. And that one says, so I'm assuming you have already worked out the basics about how you're going to live together before you move in. So after you've agreed to live together and you're living together, the golden rule says, I'm willing to adapt to make everybody comfortable. I'll do unto others as I would have them do unto me. I will make adjustments. I can do that. My second rule is do it while it's easy. And what that means to me is speak up about any kind of little nit, anything that's bothering you before it becomes a big deal. Like sometimes it's really easy to clean it up. They don't realize they've created a little problem for you and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll throw out this," whatever it might be. So that's 1, 2. And the third one is that your room is your own. It's always your own. It's the place of privacy. There's no reason why anybody should ever be in your room or your rooms, if you've got a situation like that, without your inviting them in. And that's the way you maintain privacy in a home share situation. So those 4 principles, do it, golden rule, do it while it's easy, your room is your own, and the incest taboo. And I think if people can live by all 4 of those, they can have housemates and be happy with their housemates. As somebody said to me, what everybody forgets is that it's fun. It's nice to have somebody around that you like, that you respect. You can have a game, you can do stuff, you can make meals together. It can be fun.
Indeed, indeed. You focus heavily on seniors. Many older adults end up in assisted living facilities simply because they can't manage a house alone. Is the refusal to get a housemate often a fatal pride that forces them out of their own homes?
Quite that way, but yes, if older people were willing to have a younger person living with them, they would be able to stay in their houses longer. There's no question about that, because a younger person can do stuff easily that older people don't. Like I can remember my grandmother asking me to pick up the groceries out of the car and bringing them into the house. Sure, no problem. But some things begin to get harder. So Yeah, I would love to see more seniors agree, especially, widows. For some reason, women last longer than men, and there are a lot of women who've taken care of their husbands through their illnesses and eventual death. And now they're living in big houses by themselves. They're probably using 2 rooms, because how many rooms can a person use, right? And they've just got all this extra space, which could be occupied by people who could be helpful and who could be part of a life and have a lot less social isolation. But, I tend to focus on older people, and my board has given me a hard time about this because it's true with the housing crisis everywhere that lots of people need to live in shared housing. And I want people to do it with a feeling of fun and adventure and possibility rather than, this is awful that I have to live in shared housing. I don't think it needs to be awful. I think it can be fabulous.
Annamarie, for the listener who is sitting in a 3-bedroom house all alone, struggling to pay the bills but is terrified of letting a stranger in, what's the one yellow flag they should look for in a first interview that says, do not rent to this person?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So if a person is sitting in their house by themselves and they're thinking that they might possibly could think about living in shared housing, I want them to sign up for my newsletter, because my newsletter is designed to just keep this idea in front of people so that they get used to it, right? My website is sharinghousing.com, and the sign up for the newsletter is on the front page. I have books, I have classes, I have all of that. But people have to kind of get used to the idea because it's countercultural for many people. It's kind of like a little foreign. But if they start thinking about it and they start talking to people, they may discover that they know more people are living in shared housing than they realized. But, housing is tight right now for a lot of people everywhere. And it's very easy to get socially isolated. And when we get socially isolated, we get sad. And we get angry.
Yeah.
And then we don't know how to fix it. So I want people to be happy.
All
Did I
right.
answer
All
your
right.
question?
Yeah, you sure did. You sure did. So I have a personal one for you, Annamarie. For after 30 years of shared living and advocating for community over isolation, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
I think being happy, being content with myself, I am. I feel pretty good that I've kept this idea. I've been working on it and making it happen. So that for me, that feels like success. That I can make it happen. I can help people do this thing.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So, lastly, for our listeners who want to sign up for your newsletter or read your guidebook, so where is the best place for them to go?
My website is sharinghousing.com. And on that website, you can find the books, you can find the classes, you can find the blog posts. I have free worksheets people can download and just use. But the worksheets are designed to go with the book. But the book is a certain size and the worksheets need to be a bigger size. So I made bigger ones to be on the website for people to download. And all of this is to help people find and select somebody that they're going to be comfortable living with. And that's the key. And I believe in trials. I believe in references. People will learn all that when they read the stuff.
All right, Annamarie, it's been a truly, truly great time having a conversation with you, and I am very excited and, of course, also honored to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.